Well, Joel, thank you for coming again. This is a different location from where we usually have our press conferences. We did not have the Accelerate SC meeting today, but I assure you that all of the members of that group, as well as those assisting, are working and consolidating information and recommendations. Today we have some announcements to make, and that is effective Monday, May the 4th, I'm removing the home or work order as a mandatory order, removing that order, and that means it will then be, as of May the 1st, will be voluntary. It went into effect on April the 6th, and it will go out of effect on Monday. Also, I am removing the order to allow for outside dining on site at restaurants in those places, in addition to the takeout and delivery service that we had allowed in the original order that restricted them back in April. What they will do is follow the guidelines that have been issued by the South Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association. They have a lot of guidelines on the number of seats, the distances between the seats, where the menus go, all those sorts of things to provide, and signs alerting the customers as to the precautions that are being taken and the efforts at cleanliness and hygiene that are being implemented in those restaurants or in those facilities surrounding the restaurants. And we are confident that our people will be able to implement those guidelines and have good service outside of those restaurants. Also, I'm removing the restrictions that we'd imposed on short-term rentals from the hot spots. Notably, they were listed by the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. You remember there was a domestic travel advisory that was issued for people in New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, and the city of New Orleans because they were hot spots. You remember the very high rates of infection as well as deaths in those places. And so the Center for Disease Control issued domestic travel advisory asking people in those states and that city to stay at home and not travel outside of the state. So that has now been removed. So therefore, we are removing our restriction on the short-term rentals that was based on that finding there. Also, we're removing the self-quarantine order that complemented that required people traveling here from those CDC hotspots to quarantine for 2 weeks when they came into South Carolina. If they left before 2 weeks, of course, they were out of the state, but we had that 2-week quarantine, and we're removing that as well. And that is removed right now as we're speaking. Also, I have issued a proclamation, State of South Carolina Governor's proclamation, calling for a statewide day of prayer this Sunday, May the 3rd. I think, and I know others agree as well, that it's time that we pause. We thank God for where we are, for our lives in South Carolina. We want to recognize and console those who've lost loved ones, those who are yet to lose loved ones, friends, families. We want to thank the families of all those who've stood tall also with our first responders, the healthcare people, the doctors, the nurses, the assistants, and all of those, the deputies, the sheriffs, the firemen, and all involved who have worked to keep us safe under very stringent conditions in our state. And also we want to pray for our future, which we know is very, very bright.